What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/ProRevenge. Alright, this story's called Company A Screwed Me, so I helped the federal government screw them back 10 million plus times worse. That's a lot of times worse, guys. Alright, this is a long one, but worth the read. This was back in 2015. I had recently been let go from my previous gig. My dad had just been diagnosed with cancer, and due to my less than killer performance in channel partner sales, they needed me to start working weekends. Of course, this was a non-starter with my dad being sick, so we shook hands and went our separate ways. No hard feelings, but now I'm out of work. Crap. A month or two later, I was offered a great job with a large company that was a sizable bump in pay and a much better title. So of course I accepted. But I had to move across the country to take this job. But it was worth it, and Dad seemed to be on the mend, and the cancer seemed to be in remission. So I felt okay with moving away. At the time, I lived about 30 minutes away from my parents. The new company was a massive short-term lending company with over 1,000 locations across the US and was the leader in payday loans, title loans, etc. I didn't love the idea of working for one of these types of companies, but I figured people make poor financial decisions all the time and no one is forcing them to take the loan, and they likely understand what they are getting into. Important note. My job at Company A was basically to line up partnerships to help drive referrals to us from people looking for loans, but didn't qualify for a real bank loan, etc. I quickly ramped up the monthly revenue to around $1 million plus a month in just a few months being there. Everyone was nice, seemed like a good gig, except for one ex-army a-hole who I'll call Sergeant A-hole, who would make snarky comments about everyone, watch the clock and report you to HR if you came in at 9:05 a.m. instead of 9 a.m., leaving at 4:45 p.m. and not 5 p.m., etc. You get the picture. Part of my job was to audit the third-party applications to verify the loans that occurred and the loan balance and amount to calculate the referral commission for the affiliates. Basic due diligence. But I had to look at the contract for the loan they signed and the accompanying terms and conditions, and that's when I started seeing red flags left and right. People on welfare or social security taking loans against their car title with payment terms they would never be able to pay back, old ladies taking out a personal loan against their social security payments to help pay for their grandkids' school books, etc. Just heartbreaking scenarios. Having a background in business finance and business law from college, I knew they were royally screwed the moment they signed that contract and would eventually lose their only car through repossession, be forced to sign over social security checks to make due on the loan, as they unfortunately agreed to that in the contract. Just awful things. I started bringing this up to any executive or leader that would listen. They all said okay, but no change happened. I think we all felt super crappy as a group about this company deep down, but it's our livelihood. Around this point, my gut kept telling me to document this and keep it for some reason. I didn't know what I would do with it at the time, I just felt this urge to do so I did. I stayed and started collecting every bit of info I could find on them coercing people, even illiterate people, into signing the loan. I saw this in person multiple times, doing store audits, basically using sleazy used car salesman tactics to close the loan. Company A intentionally not explaining that 28% interest is monthly, not annual, and you have to basically close the loan every month it's not paid in full and sign a new one every month with new interest carry over from the previous balance plus new fees, several hundred per new loan, basically every month. And overall, just taking full advantage of desperate, financially illiterate people, fully knowing they couldn't ever pay off the loan, and they would milk them for every dollar, then repossess their car and sell at auction, or threaten to make the past loan payments known to their employer and threaten to garnish wages. Just horribly crappy, mean-spirited business practices. I hated it and hated Company A and everyone in leadership that knew this was happening and basically said said, "This is our business practices. It's legal." I knew full well it was not legal or ethical. I followed my gut instinct and had one of those mini handheld scanners and would print off every CFPB federal violation I came across. I'd scan it and save it, compile it at home on an SD card. Fast forward a few months. My birthday is coming up and I had planned to take a week off to celebrate with my family back home, with my dad very sick at this point. I knew this was likely my last birthday with him. We had a blast. Definitely top 5 family memories of all time. We lived it up and did everything we could think of together. The time comes to go back to work in the other state, and I didn't want to leave, but told my mom I would come back home in a heartbeat when you need me to. I get back from paid time off the next day. Mom calls. "Dad is in very bad shape." I run it by my awesome boss. He says, "Don't talk. Go home. Come back when you're ready." Awesome. Amazing guy with a huge heart. He will always have a special place in my heart for that response. He understood work was not important right now. For context, Sergeant A-Hole was passed over for Awesome Boss job and it was given to Awesome Boss instead. So from day one, Sergeant A-Hole had it out for all of us and he wanted that gig and was determined to get it by any means necessary. Day 2, Tuesday, back home. Awesome Boss calls me, tells me he's been fired. Apparently, Sergeant A-Hole complained to the CEO and COO about his lax approach to his team, letting me just leave without approval, etc. And now Sergeant A-Hole is my boss, and Awesome Boss lets me know that Sergeant A-Hole will probably fire me too once I get back. So wanted to give me a heads up. With everything else I was dealing with, he just didn't want me to be blindsided. A1 guy. I stay through the funeral, then fly back to face the music. 10 minutes in, Sergeant A-Hole calls me into his office, tells me I violated company policy by taking unapproved time off, and that we needed to talk to HR. I explained what happened, dad passed, funeral, mom distraught, etc. He says, "I'm sorry that happened, but company policy doesn't excuse that." The lady in HR felt so bad I had to be fired, by the COO nonetheless. I tell her I've only been here 4 months, and I spent all my savings relocating down here for the job. This really puts me in a difficult financial situation. She says she'll work hard to get me some severance, as I don't qualify for unemployment yet, being there for just a few months. Sergeant A-Hole chimes in. "Well, you wouldn't qualify anyways. You're being fired for non-compliance and excessive absences." Okay, what is that? Dude. HR calls me on the phone the next day saying Sergeant A-Hole contacted the COO to make sure I didn't get any severance. So now I'm broke, 5 months into a 12-month lease with no money and no job. I'm up Dookie Creek without a paddle and without my go-to guy, my dad, in the situation. I had to sell most of my stuff, pack up, and move home to live with my mom. Now comes the righteous revenge. I tried to be civil, but the new boss and the executive team played dirty. The time of reckoning is now. I remembered my database of incriminating practices that violated CFPB guidelines, call up Awesome Boss to get his feedback and advice, and he wants to help. Now we have a team. We spent the next several weeks building a massive file to submit to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for unfair and predatory lending practices by Company A, which we were somewhat complicit in, but both voiced our concerns, but we needed to make this right. We knew we had been a part of this monster, and it's the least we should do to correct it. I gave everything I had to my awesome boss, now teammate, and we provided the CFPB everything I had seen in brick-and-mortar locations, all the incriminating documents I had, and gave 2 detailed written statements of our concerns about Company A to the CFPB for their investigation under the condition of anonymity. We never heard back and assumed nothing would come of it, but we did our best to right this wrong we had participated in. Unknown to us, there were thousands of complaints against Company A by consumers, and Awesome Boss let me know he heard from them, and what we provided helped them build their cases against Company A. Awesome Boss calls me about 5 months later, now early 2016, to let let them know the CFPB called him and something is about to happen. This led to a fairly large consumer protection investigation into Company A, unknown to me and Awesome Boss at the time. But another several months passed, didn't hear or see anything, so I figured that they hired some top-shelf lawyers and made it go away. That is, until June of 2016. While drinking coffee and applying for new jobs at my mom's house in the morning, I was watching CNBC and hear Company A's name come up. I turned to watch and see that they are getting hit with huge fines, legal fees, and their business has to basically stop all business until the case is resolved. They ended up being levied almost 10 million in fines, over 20 million in legal fees, and lost out on about 50 million in revenue while the government pressed pause on their operation. All thanks to Sergeant A-Hole, which I later found out from a previous coworker that Sergeant A-Hole was fired and thrown under the bus for not reporting employee complaints to the executive team. But they knew full well. I told the COO multiple times what we were doing is probably illegal, but they made Sergeant A-Hole the sacrificial lamb in this case. To this day, there are still tons of pending class action lawsuits and regional government actions against them. But it worked out for me personally. Mom was so glad I was back home. She was having such a hard time without Dad around. They were married for 35 years. I took my downtime to learn a new career that pays much better, and I love my new career and post-Company A life, and it felt good to watch that cesspool of a company get their comeuppance on behalf of everyone they lied to, stole from, and screwed over. As Grandma always said, some turds sink and some float to the top. In the end, they all get flushed. I was very happy to see this floating turd get flushed. Enigmatic Pineapple Horse 511, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And expose I did. Wow, they get a bunch of upvotes and awards when they expose, but when I do it, I get tagged with the indecent exposure charge. Bullcrap, I say, bullcrap. That was just a joke. We don't condone hanging brain, a daily dose of Reddit, okay? But anyway, this was a really cool story. I love whistleblower tales. For instance, Outlast Whistleblower. That's a cool game. I like it. See? Credibility. Oh, by the way, someone asked in the comments if I beat the Valkyrie Queen, and I have not yet. I have attempted it here and there, but I will beat her. I am not going to delete God of War off of my PS4 Pro until I beat the Valkyrie Queen, Sigrun, because I'm so close to beating that game. Alright, this story's called Steal My Underwear, Enjoy Your Time in Prison. This is a throwaway account for obvious reasons, and sorry if my English isn't that good. My family moved into a third world country from Italy when I was 22, because my father said that he was getting old and wanted to go back to his country. Every week or so, when my cousins would visit, some stuff from my room would go missing. Sometimes it was money, and sometimes it was random things, which annoyed me. One day when we were visiting them, my aunt asked me to get her something from her son's room. I was planning on taking a look around the room to see if he was the one stealing from me. But when I entered the room, I found one of my underwear on the ground. I took pictures and then tried to grab it, only to find out that it was full of his liquid. Oh boy. I was angry, but I left the room like nothing happened, like the pushover I am. My best friend back then was a lawyer, and when I told her about it, she told me that there is nothing that I can do about it legally since I can't prove he stole it. But since he is the one stealing from me, I can make a trap by putting a camera in my room and using something expensive that doesn't look that expensive as bait. I liked my friend's idea, and she suggested using an expensive alcoholic drink. So I bought a bottle for $10,000 US. The average salary in this country is $200 US a month, and I could only afford this because I started my own business on the internet back in college and set the trap. When they came to to visit, he stole the bottle and a wired bra that was on my bed. I told my best friend and she came with me to tell the police. When they brought him in, he denied everything. But then my best friend gave the cops the video and asked them to go through his room to look for the rest of my things. They found the underwear and a lot of my stuff in there, and the bottle was empty. Now the father's part of the family have cut contact with us, and he is serving his second year in prison. We returned to Italy because, as my father said, we don't have a family there anymore. My parents know the full story and they are proud. Badass! Freaking yeah, don't do creepy crap like that, especially if they're your cousins. That should be a no-brainer. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.